What do you say, everybody? With Jay Barker, I'm Mick Gillispie. It's time for Crimson Tide headlines here on Bama Insider, the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up as we talk about the Alabama Crimson Tide here on Bama Insider on the On3 network. Hit the bell. That way, you know, when we have a live show, we do this every Tuesday and Thursday, right around 2 o'clock, a little bit later today because of Nick Saban's press conference and the players' press conferences and all the press conferences. But we'll keep track of all of that stuff, and we post it for you right here on the YouTube channel. What's up, Jay?
Mick, what's happening, my man? Hey, a win's a win, right? We've been talking about it since after the game in our post-game show. And I know a lot of fodder out there on the online and social media, whether it be talk radio fans, are wondering what happened. But able to come back, Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young really just pulled this team together there at the end and did a great job with that run. Out Reichert again, just, you know, a guy that's been automatic, doing a great job in the last few years. And Alabama gets the big win at Texas. Coach Saban didn't like the horns down, though.
No, I did the horns down too as a joke at the end of the post-game show, but that's really, you know, kind of, I don't know, that's really unbecoming of Alabama, right? Just because we're not really that team. We're more the team that's just going to hand you the football and walk off. And it's been that way long before you played at Alabama. It's been that way for a long, long time, Jay.
It has been. And I think it's just that you've been there, you've done that, act like you've been there. And Alabama's been there over the last 15 years, especially with Coach Saban. I think that's frustrating for him. Plus, he's going against one of his former assistants, somebody he has a relationship with. You just don't want to do that. But I get it. They were caught up in the emotions. It was brought up that you get a 15-yard penalty, so they kind of brought that up, talked about it earlier in the week. And some players just can't withhold the emotion. they got to express themselves. I get it. I mean, it's because really for them, they saw their season slipping away, their chance of maybe playing for another national title, a playoff appearance. So Coach Saban may not have liked it. There were a lot of fans that did like it. You know, when they hooked the field goal, I kept saying, hook 'em horns, and he hooked it left. So that was good. But yeah, it was a great win for them. Again, not what we expected, but you know, we said this on postgame show, Mick, you know, that Sark just came in with such a great game plan, and that script, those first script plays, really kept his young quarterback playing at a high level, not allowing him to make mistakes, and really get a good drive under their belt. And they were moving the football. So Alabama had to answer. And they came back, made some adjustments at halftime, really made the adjustments on pressure in the fourth quarter. I think through the third quarter, Bryce was 1 of 8 on pressures, then 3 of 4 in the fourth quarter, which allowed them to go on and get the field goal, take the win, and get a big one coming out of Texas. 105,000 people, 120 degrees on the field, a lot of obstacles for them to overcome. No air conditioning. They brought their own to the stadium. So a lot of things happening there that they had to overcome, and they did.
Yeah, no band. You know, I thought there were a lot of Bush League things going on here. That, you know, not enough room for the band to be in the lower level, which a custom, you know, the locker room situation. You know, there was just a bunch of stuff where you're like, man, you know, you guys got to clean it up if you're coming to the SEC. This isn't how we do it here. But at the same time, it's a great tradition there. A lot of respect for Texas fans. Like, they're into football just like we are. They've dominated this series, and it's one of the few series that has been dominated by an opposition of Alabama. But the Tide have won 2 straight with Nick Saban. It was a hard-fought win. Everything went against Alabama, and they still found a way to get it done. But you know what's weird, Jay, is that you look at the polls, right? And Alabama slides down to number 2 in the polls. They get passed by Georgia. Texas wasn't in the polls. They lose, and now all of a sudden they're like number 21. How does it even happen?
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think people there, again, get emotionally involved, even in the polls. So, you know, taking a look right there, that right there's the AP poll. Now, the coaches poll, Alabama is at number 1, Georgia at number 2, Ohio State at 3, Clemson at 4, Michigan at 5, Oklahoma at 6, 7, Oklahoma State, USC 8, Michigan State 9, and Kentucky 10. But here in the AP polls, you see Georgia 1, Alabama 2, Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson, then Oklahoma at 6, USC at 7, Oklahoma State at 8, Kentucky at 9, and Arkansas at 10. That's your top 10 AP poll right there. So you look at that, and no surprise. Look, Georgia's played really well the last couple of weeks. They put up a bunch of points. They've dominated their opponent. They get the 53 first place votes by the AP. But the coaches thought differently. They still think Alabama's the better team at 39 votes to get that number one spot compared to Georgia's 25 votes. And Ohio State got 1 vote in each poll. So Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson sitting outside of the top 5. I'm still not sold on them, even though I want to see them do well because of Dabo, all the coaches I know on that coaching staff. But watching them in spring, watching them in some summer workouts, just wasn't impressed with their depth as far as athleticism and the type of players that Clemson normally has. But maybe through recruiting and maybe through some of the younger guys that have come in the summer and some of the transfer portal guys, that maybe that's going to make a difference for them. But any take on your part from that top 4 or 5?
Look, I think this feels more like a normal SEC season, right? You got 4 in the top 25 now. Texas A&M obviously never belonged in the poll, and they found out the hard way. But Kentucky, really good football team. I went against them last week. I thought Florida was going to beat them. They showed me with their defense how good they are. Arkansas, to me, is definitely right now a top 10 team. Tennessee is all the way up to number 15. This is a dangerous team. They went on the road and beat Pitt. That was a great win for them in overtime. You got Ole Miss in there. A&M still in the poll. I just think that it's starting to kind of, as you move forward, get into seeing how deep this conference is. And I really feel like the SEC this year is as deep as it's been. And I say that looking at Alabama's schedule in the future here, because they have a bunch of tough road games. I mean, there's just no gimmies for Alabama. They're going to be at number 10 Arkansas. They're going to be at number 15 Tennessee. They'll play LSU, which is always going to be tough down there, right? And then they're going to be at number 21 Ole Miss. That's 4 games in the conference. It's not like they play at Vanderbilt, mix that in there, or at Mississippi State, who's actually a pretty decent team this year. I feel like this is, with that Texas game that was just played, one of the tougher years as far as the road schedule goes for the Crimson Tide. And they've proven that they're really good at home. They're really good at the neutral sites, but they struggle on the road.
Yeah, Kentucky and Arkansas both made 2 of the biggest jumps in the poll. Kentucky up 11 spots in the AP poll. Arkansas up 6 spots. BYU is probably in between those with 9-spot jump for them, as well as Tennessee gets to number 15 with a 9-spot jump in the AP poll. So those are all, Arkansas, you look at Tennessee, as you brought up, you look at, facing Georgia at some point in time, hopefully in the championship game. You look at still A&M. I mean, Texas A&M, Jimbo's going to get them kind of righted in the right direction. I mean, I think the biggest thing for him is I think he's finally realizing, which a lot of people have said for the last 3 or 4 years, you got to get rid of that old FSU offense. He's running an old offense that's taken way too much time with the pressure and the style of athletes you have on the defense side of the ball. If you're going to run it, you better have a great run game. And right now they just have not had that. And what a disappointing loss for them this past weekend. But yeah, tough road schedule for Bama coming up. I think we're going to see a lot of movement in this poll over the next few weeks. But Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson, Oklahoma, USC, even Oklahoma State, I think is playing really well right now. I think they might surprise some people there in the Big 12. So I think that's looking good. And to have Kentucky, Arkansas, and Alabama and Georgia, 4 teams in the top 10 says a lot for the SEC.
Like and subscribe as you hang out with us here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Give us a thumbs up. That is a way of saying roll tide, share, let your friends know, and hit the bell so that anytime we go live, you'll have the opportunity to join us here. He's Jay Barker. I'm Mick Gillispie. This is Crimson Tide Headlines. We do this every Tuesday and Thursday. Let's talk about the struggles that the Alabama offense had, Jay. Your take on the offensive line and the wide receivers.
I couldn't have said it better than Coach Saban said it after the game, and I think he even said it again, reiterated it on Monday in his press conference, that they got to have more push up front, especially in being able to run the ball when you want to run it, how you want to run it, and then also just consistency, playing together. And that's going to come through experience together through, we talk about that chemistry with the wide receivers. There's chemistry amongst those offensive linemen, center being able to communicate, guys in a very hostile environment. I couldn't believe the penalties that Alabama had this past weekend, the 15 we talked about in the postgame show. But they'll clean those things. There's a lot of stuff that they can clean up easily, but they want to get better up front. They want to be more physical in the front, get more push, do the things that you want to see out of a dominant offensive line, being able to run the football, because off of those runs, which Coach Saban and many of the coaches have talked about, is where they get their explosive plays down the field. And right now, that's one of the areas you talk about wide receiver. People don't feel like that there's a guy that's really taking the top off the coverage. Maybe they get Harold back. Maybe he's able to, to get healthy to become that guy. Maybe it's a Ja'Cory Brooks who really had a great second half in that game last week. So a lot of improvement needs to happen on the offensive line, especially because that's where it all starts. As I've said many times, you win in the trenches. If I'm picking, whether it be in the NFL draft or 5-star recruits, I'd rather have a group of 5 stars up front on both sides of the football than anywhere else, because that's where you win football games.
Yeah, no doubt about it. How long do you think it will take for this offensive line to kind of gel together?
I think these next 2 weeks are really important for them. I mean, I think that they're going to need to, based on traveling to Arkansas. It's going to be another tough environment and a really good team that's physical up front on both sides of football. But I think they can get things settled in. I really like the coach that's there now. I think he's done a terrific job. You hear the players talk about him, his mentality, the difference that he's made for them just as players and preparation. And, again, just a tough environment. This past weekend, 105,000 people. They were very loud. It was their Super Bowl. I mean, that's what Alabama's going to get now. They'll get that at Arkansas. It'll be Arkansas Super Bowl. So the same type of craziness from the fans. That's where you have to go out as an offense and say, look, we got to go score points early, get the fans out of the game, get all the distractions gone. Defense play solid, keep people from scoring and making yards, get the ball back in Bryce's hands and let him distribute the ball like he can do. And, again, I think these 2 weeks can help them a ton.
Alabama 20 and Texas 19. It certainly didn't feel that way, but that was the score. Alabama 2-0 on the season. These are games that a lot of teams around the league lost, around college football lost. There were a ton of upsets, and Coach Saban kind of addressed that. He was talking about Alabama being a 20-point favorite. This is what he had to say, Jay. I thought it was worth listening to and then commenting.
Points. Well, there were 2 teams that I know of, maybe more, I don't know, that were favored by about the same amount that actually got beat. So I guess it doesn't mean anything. And that's why we have to play the games. So it's important for players to learn that they have to focus and prepare for every team and every opponent so that they can go out there and play to the best of their ability. Because sometimes even when you win, you can lose.
There you go, Jay. Nick Saban, I get the feeling that he loves these opportunities. You don't take the loss, but at the time it feels like he took a loss. And then he uses it as a learning, a teaching experience or a learning experience for the players, teaching for him.
Yeah, he loves these moments, believe it or not. I mean, yes, you'd rather win by 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, blow a team out. But as a head coach that's trying to teach a team and really getting over last year as far as the rat poison and any of the distractions they had off the field, they really overcome that. Now it's about, don't worry about what people are talking about you. If they're saying you're going to beat a team by a number of points, you got to go out and execute. And he talked about that early in the week last week. The team that executes the best will be the team that wins this game. And really, Texas executed very well. They had a great game plan. We played poorly. We had bad as far as just playing smart football without the penalties. And, that's the thing that really, I think, separated that game and Alabama, not winning by more points. I mean, Texas got a lot of first downs just off penalties. When you have 15 for 100 yards, that's a huge difference. Most teams can't come back from that. So Alabama did. And their Heisman Trophy winner stepped up in big ways during that game. Defense as well. Will Anderson, that sack was huge for them to be able to get the ball back and be able to do what they did in order to come back and win that game. So I think, there's a lot to grow from on this. It's so funny, Mick, because, and I think it's when I was playing, I mean, you talk 30 years ago now, we'll be celebrating the national championship from 92 this year. Can't believe it's been 30 years. But we didn't hear about point spreads. I mean, point spreads weren't like they are now. I mean, now with all the different sites and all the things in social media that you see, even the media didn't talk about point spreads back then as much as they do now. So, it's hard for these guys not to hear that. It's hard for them to put that aside and put it away from them, but they just have to. They can't worry about what somebody thinks they may beat them by. You just got to go out there and execute, play the game at a high level, play it clean. And if you do that, I think Alabama, with the talent they've got, the coaches they've got, have a chance to win every single game this year that they play. Now, if they don't do that, then that's a different story, because they're going to meet teams that have equal or about the same amount of talent or better at times in certain positions. One-on-one matches, what it counts in football. And that's what Saban's trying to teach them, is that even early in the year, we can't get distracted by whether it be a team that seems to be easy, we should win by a lot of points. Every opponent has a chance every single Saturday. You got to give them that type of respect. If you play the game that way, then you're going to be prepared every single week with the right mentality and intensity that you can carry over week after week after week. Without that, you get distracted.
Great to see all you guys hanging out with us in the comment section. Shane and Katrina and Jonathan and all you guys. David, Roll Tide, man. Thanks for hanging out. If you haven't commented yet, get over and shoot a comment, ask a question. We'll try to answer a couple of those questions before we get off the air. This is Crimson Tide Headlines. It's on Bama Insider and the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, the thumbs up. Tell your friends about it. Roll Tide Jarvis. We want you guys to be here anytime we go live. Hit the bell so you know when we are live. We do this show every Tuesday or Thursday. We've got the call-in show with Kyle Henderson on Wednesday. Of course, the tailgate show is Friday night. Andrew Bone coming up later tonight to talk recruiting. Best in the business, man. You guys are a part of it, and this deal, I'm promising you, very, very likely won't be here next week. So if you're interested in Bama Insider on 3, you can get it right now, only $1. And that's by going to BamaInsider.com. You get all the recruiting with Andrew Bone, Joseph Hastings. You get the message board with Jimmy Stein and Clint Lamb. You're up to date on anything going on with the Crimson Tide. BamaInsider.com. Make that move now or forever hold your peace. You'll just have to pay more money, but it'll be worth it. So we'll do all the recruiting and everything else. All right, Jay, Nick say kind of adjust the polls, and you talked about it. It has kind of changed, and I think part of the reason why is gambling's, on sports is become it's illegal, and it's something that we're just used to now. Back then, you had to go out to Las Vegas. I mean, now you can roll over to Pearl River Resort. And they've got a sports book there, and you can, have some fun betting on game Mississippi. So it's not like it's that far away. People really like that aspect of football. I think that's what's made football so much more popular now than baseball. And talking about popularity of sports, how about the TV ratings for Bama versus Texas? It was huge. Over 10 million people watched. That's the most watched game this year.
Yeah, most watched game on the network this year, on any network. And I think that's huge for Fox. And they did a really good job of getting this time slot. There's not a lot of great games played at that time. And they went ahead and got that 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. Eastern time slot. Now, the West Coast is 9 a.m., so it's not so great for them. But look at the numbers. I mean, the peak there at 3:15 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern was 15,127,000 viewers. Alabama and Texas, again, most watched college football game, any network, and the most watched telecast of the day on any network. The 4th most watched regular season college football game in Fox history, only surpassing by previous Ohio State-Michigan matchups. And so the big noon kickoff has been a big deal for them. They like that spot. Now, being Texas and Alabama, you're going to get a lot of eyes. Texas has a lot of fans nationally. Alabama has a lot of fans nationally as well. And really what kept them in at that 3:15, 3:30, I mean, if Alabama's winning by 20 at halftime, you can deplete that number probably by half. I bet it's about 7.5, 8 million, if that. So, because if Alabama looked like they were just going to run away, I think most people would have gone to other places. But they wanted to see whether or not the number 1 team could hold on. And Texas did a great job throughout that first half and even all the way to the 4th quarter, keeping it close. And that ended up being big ratings for Fox.
Yeah, last year, one of the top 3 games was the Iron Bowl, right? And Michigan and Ohio State also were, and played the same exact day, and they were in the top 3 as far as TV viewing goes. And I think part of this is that people want to see Alabama lose. I hate to say it, but both of those games were really tight. They were very similar games, and both of them, Alabama pulled it out at the end when it looked like maybe they weren't going to.
Yeah, and I tell you, you can't dream of that type of scenario if you're a TV network or if you're the host of that game. And, being a guy that does all the baseball stuff, done football, basketball, everything. I mean, you want the tight games kind of as an announcer, especially if you're the neutral guy sitting there, the Fox guy that's wanting to call the game and keep it interesting. And those guys do a terrific job. So Fox, very excited about what they got in week 2 with this matchup. And again, I think if you're the SEC and if you're sitting there and you're Greg Sankey, you got to say, hey, this is why we went and got Texas. This is why we got Oklahoma. We want the TV eyes. We know there's passion for their sports, for their teams, as well as it is for the SEC. They're going to be great members of the SEC coming up here in the near future.
Do you think that we're going to see more of these 11 a.m., noon kickoffs and 11 a.m. Central noon kickoffs? I mean, when you can put that kind of viewership together on a Saturday morning for the most part, or early afternoon, are we going to see more of this now?
You could, because, I mean, what Fox, I think, realized was that if you can get these early matchups that are big names, you're not competing against the 2:30 slot. You're not competing against the evening slots as well. They're going to have multiple big matchups with the other networks. So they were smart in getting this and kind of creating this right there at the beginning of the day, and the big noon kickoff that they do, and the show leading up into that as well. So very, very smart on their part. You might see ESPN and some other networks start looking at stuff like this and trying to figure out a way to kind of capture that market. But we'll see kind of how it all plays out. But that was, again, Alabama fans, I get it. And I understand the frustration after the game over the last couple of days. I think everybody's kind of calmed down a little bit and said, okay, win's a win. It was ugly. We can learn from it. And let me just tell you, again, Coach Saban loves these moments. He loves the fact that his team got humbled. He loves the fact that he can coach them up. He loves the fact that he can yell at them a little bit, get on to them and tell them, look, you're not as good as you thought you were. And you want to get that early in the season, kind of that win, or that win like that, or, the struggle, the hard times you have on the field, the tough atmosphere. They're now seasoned and realize what almost was taken from them. So they're going to play with, I think, a little bit different sense of urgency heading into these next few games.
Look, I got to be honest. I'm not always a big fan of the crews that call the Alabama game. Sometimes I am, and sometimes I'm not. ESPN has some crews that you just shake your head at, right? I really enjoyed this crew. I like Gus Johnson. I mean,
Gus is awesome.
I like the enthusiasm that he brings. I like the fact that he's outside of the box. He's not checking boxes. He's outside of the box. And I think a lot of these executives in the broadcasting business are just so worried about protecting their job that they don't give a lot of guys like him a chance. And we don't get to see him much because he never calls an Alabama game. I loved it. I like part of it, the broadcast part. And then, I want to hear what you thought about that. And then I got to say this. Let me swing back to this before we get off into the next topic. But what do you think?
I just thought Gus Johnson's amazing. I've loved him since I've watched him for years. I think he's one of the best in the business play-by-play. I think Joel Klatt does a good job. I don't always agree with his opinions or agree with his polls, but I think he does a good job on TV as a color and analyst. Gus is awesome because Gus always brings the play. He's so exciting. So he knows when to elevate. And as far as his voice, I feel sorry for Joel Klatt sometimes that he's going to go deaf over the amount of years he's worked with him because of the screaming and yelling and sometimes that Gus Johnson has. But he's creating that excitement. He wants to get the fans to feel like you're here with us. You're getting this play. And then what he does after that, a lot of times he has these great kind of behind the scenes, off the field stories about the player, about, hey, I met this guy's mom. And then he starts going into, and he has such a great storytelling way of doing it during the play-by-play, and it gets right back to the play. And he's done that for years with a lot of the players, and you learn a lot about him. There's not a lot of play-by-play guys that go in that direction to tell you something that they know about this player. And he's always been able to do that. And I really admired that about that. I also admire his faith. I admire the type of man he seems to be. I don't know him personally, but I've heard a lot of great things about him.
And then I was going to say this. I caught a little of the radio broadcast the last 2 weeks with Chris Stewart and John Parker Wilson. There's a chemistry that these guys have that I feel like's been missing, Jay. I mean, you can just tell that there's a lot of laughing going on in the press box. And I think that it translates through the broadcast. I used to work with a guy named Larry Ward in Chattanooga, and he used to talk about broadcasting with a smile. And because people can just feel it. I feel it, man. I really like what these guys are doing right now. I think those two have a chemistry.
Yeah, and then plus they're closer in age. They kind of can go back and forth. They kind of get each other a little bit. And here's the good thing on the broadcast. Eli was on and explained, kind of what was going on. A lot of people wondering, when's he going to be back? How serious is this? He said, look, it's just orthopedic, something I got to deal with. I'm going to be back. So I think that was good news for Eli. Good to hear that about him. But thought Chris did an excellent job. John Parker does a great job as far as color analyst. They make a great chemistry, great team. But we'll be glad to get Eli back soon.
All right, let's talk high tide traditions. This is the thing that's the future of where we're at right now. All the NIL things going on right now, Jay, and they just continue to try to build up to help Alabama and the players that are going to come and and student athletes to the Crimson Tide.
Yeah, it's an important thing, and I don't know if we can get it up, Chris, on the site with joinhtt.com. That's joinhtt.com. And High Tide Traditions, the whole idea behind it was all the universities and really the collectives were looking at how do we reach the average fan? How do we reach the sidewalk alumnus, the person that never went to school at Alabama? Alabama's got a lot of fans that never attended Alabama, a lot of people inside the state especially, but outside the state as well, that have become Alabama fans through Coach Bryant, through our years in the 1990s, through even what's happened now the last 15 years with Coach Saban. And how do we get them to be a part of the collective and be able to help as far as the things that will go back to these student athletes? And this is going to cover all athletics throughout the University of Alabama. There will even be a chance where at some point you'll be able to actually just earmark what sports you want it to go to. So if you support women's basketball, men's basketball, baseball, softball, gymnastics, if you support the track and field, you'll be able to earmark that towards the sport that you want to give that money to. So you can see all the different memberships. So you're going to get swag along with the membership. You can see what it costs monthly and then annually. There are a lot of folks out there that can't give even $1,000 a year, or can't give $10,000, or can't give the $1 million or $5 million to get into those boxes that you see at Bryant Denny Stadium, but they want to be a part of this tradition. They want to be a part of something special. This is a way for them to do that through High Tide Tradition. So all the former players are on board with this. You got so many fans out there that are already stepping up and signing up and being a part of this. This is the future of what the collectors are going to mean for these coaches to go out to be able to recruit players in, to be able to provide for them things outside of just what they're getting on the scholarship. And I think it's going to be a home run. I really do. And it's great apparel, great merch, great swag, and you're going to love it. So if you're out there, if you haven't joined, join. If you're joining, tell your friends, tell your family, tell all the Alabama fans out there, because I'm telling you, this is not just happening at Alabama. These type of things are happening all over the country, and even some of your biggest competition in the SEC, and they're jumping all over the stuff. So Alabama fans, we step up all the time. We're champions off the field as much as our guys are champions on the field. You can be a champion by joining High Tide Traditions. Go, again, to joinhtt.com. That's joinhtt.com. You'll see all this that we're showing you right now online and get a chance to be a part of the Crimson Tide and helping out with the collective.
Yeah, great. Looks like some cool stuff in there, Jay. Let's get to a couple of questions. And as you guys hang out, again, think about helping out High Tide Traditions, getting your box and being a part of the collective that's going to help Alabama stay at number one, recruiting and obviously
it's the war
on the
chest.
field.
Yeah, it's the war chest.
There it is right there. All right, here's one from Jen House. Question to Jay. Clemson and Georgia defensive line look like they play like men. Alabama defenses used to look and play like that. What happened? Is this defense? Is it the defensive coordinator's personality? I don't even know if I agree with that, but it's a good question. He's saying, hey, Clemson and Georgia's defensive line looks a little bit tougher than Alabama's. They have one sack this year and no turnovers for Alabama.
Yeah, so the outside guys for Alabama are your rushers. The inside guys are more run stoppers, guys that are going to try to clog it up and then allow Henry Toto, Jalen Moody to run. That's kind of the philosophy behind the defense. They feel like that's the best thing because then you can stop the run up front with those guys. You can get the pass rush from the outside, get a good push in the middle when the passing downs. But more importantly, have linebackers that can run with players in space with a new style of offense that you got. But I get what you're saying. I mean, Clemson looks good. I think Georgia looks really good. I don't know if I'd even put Clemson in that right now. Alabama, I think, is right there with them. I think they're still going to continue to get better. I think you're going to see more of Otis as the year goes on, who's really come along and been a great player through spring practice. You're going to see more of Chris as well, Braswell, who's another type of rusher and athlete they can put on the field. But yeah, I mean, it's look, Texas came out. Talking to the coaching staff, talking to some of them, I mean, they felt like they had a great plan going in. Texas had a lot of good answers, and you got to give Patterson a lot of the credit for that, the former TCU head coach who spent about 4 or 5 months prepping for Alabama and their offense, how to slow Bryce down, how to really hold them in check, and they did a good job of that. And then offensively, how to attack it. Sark did a terrific job, and it shows that they're good coaches on both sides of the ball. They're great players on both sides of the ball. And should have Alabama on paper won that by more points? There's no doubt about it. But when you walk into environments like that, and you're playing for that, and it's their Super Bowl, all the emotions that led up to that game, all the way through the summer. Just to come out with a win was a good thing. I know it didn't mean a lot to some fans, but hey, I'll take one point at a time.
All right, last question we'll go with today. It's really not a question, but Jarvis, who's one of our great members here, hanging out with us all the time, he says we needed a scare to wake up. Look, I tend to agree, right? It's a good wake-up call, right?
It is, and it's even, a wake-up call is a good way to say it, but it's more, I think, a humbling thing to say, look, you're just not, you can't listen to all the preseason polls. You got to go out and execute. You got to play at a high level. Yes, you may be one of the top ranked recruiting classes of the last 4 or 5 years. You may have all these great players, but you got to play together as a team. And that's the one thing that we felt like going into the season. I think that's going to be an important part of the next 2 weeks, Mick, is seeing how these leaders that we've talked about, the Will Andersons, the Jordan Battles, the Bryce Youngs, on that side of the football, how do they respond and how do they lead this team now in the locker room, on the field, on the practice field, workouts and meetings, and how these guys really respond to that is going to be important. I think they'll respond well. This is a really good football team when it comes to leadership and the chemistry that they've got. I really think this is going to help them going down. Like I said, you would rather have the scare early so that now you're prepared mentally, psychologically, and know that you can come back from things like this. You can win games, come from behind, especially in hostile environments. But more importantly, that you better step it up every day, the intensity, the process, all the things that Coach Saban talks about. The execution has to be at a high level all the time, not some of the time. And it's got to be at a high level in class, in the meetings, in workouts, and on the practice field. That then goes to the playing field.
Jay Barker's show is every day on radio across Alabama and Florida. And you can check out Jay from 12 to noon on the radio. And then, of course, hanging out with us. I said 12 to noon. How about 12 to 2? That would be a weird show, right, Jay?
It's a millisecond.
Yeah, like it was fast. Hey, there it is. Hello, and then that would be it. And then
That's
you can
right.
check us out every Tuesday and Thursday here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel with Crimson Tide headlines. And Jay will be with me for the tailgate show that will be 6 to 8 Friday night from Unique on the Strip. That's going to be a lot of fun right there on the Strip. The old Egan's. We're going to be sitting outside and, people walking behind us. It'll be the right atmosphere for this week's game. Anything else you got going on, Jay?
No, I mean, I just want to remind people, join High Tide Traditions, man. I'm telling you, that's going to be a huge impact. And Alabama needs to stay ahead of the curve. And I'm telling you, the teams, and I know of them, that are doing this, that are getting really involved, getting the support from the fans out there, tell all your friends, your family, all the Alabama fans, put it out on social media yourself. But join it. Join HTT.com. That's join HighTideTraditions.com. Join HTT.com. Get involved in that, and I promise you it's going to make a huge difference for these players and, importantly, for our athletic program all around as a whole.
Get a full year of Bama Insider on 3 for only $1. 1 week left. So they've announced it. 1 week left for this deal. $1 gets you an entire year. That's 12 months for $1. BamaInsider.com. That's all the recruiting news with Andrew Bone, whose show's coming up later tonight here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Joseph Hastings, who is blanketing the country right now, seeing Alabama's commitments and some of the top targets for the Crimson Tide. They put a lot of that information out there. All of the nuggets that you get from Clint Lamb, who covers Alabama, the beat for us, and then Jimmy Stein and him. They do a podcast. They're also on the message board all the time. That's BamaInsider.com. Guys, as you hang out with us here on the YouTube channel, like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. We're trying to get this thing up to 100,000 or more. That we want to match what's at Bryant-Denny Stadium every Alabama football game day. Hit the bell so you know that we're live and you don't miss the show. And we appreciate all of you guys for hanging out with us tonight. Chris Daughtry, another fantastic job behind the scenes. And for our director, Kyle Henderson, Jay Barker, I'm Mick Gillispie. Again, we'll talk to you again with this show on Thursday. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.